Allow me to reintroduce myself. I know some of you don't know me. My name is Tobias A. Fox, founder of North Science and Sustainability, based in Newark, New Jersey. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we advocate for the incorporation of science into the fabric of our social life.
Give Tobias a standing ovation because this is not easy. This is not easy. Give him, yes, a shout out. Yay! I am just so humbled. I really am by the work that you're doing. So I just, before we begin, and just want to give them another hand because this indeed is just an amazing opportunity to get so much information from these awesome professionals who are actually working in the communities. They're not in some big, huge corporate space and pushing the pencil. They're doing the work. I always say it's a tough place right now for us all to think about fruits and vegetables when our parents or grandparents would grow fruits and vegetables in the garden, or when we used to play in the water puddles, which we can no longer do, or we would walk to school, but we can no longer do that either. This is a group that's going to really take you into the mindfulness of where we are as a community on sustainability. So I'm so happy and humbled to be here. On that note, we're going to take it to the fabulous Jacqueline.
Thank you so very much. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Make some noise. You are now entering our panel discussion. So in order to begin our reflective journey on sustainability and how do we create these types of communities, I want you all to reflect on what are you great at? What are you great at? And as we close the panel discussion, we will come back to the point of what are you great at? So let us begin. Panelists, are you ready? Angela, as it pertains to poverty, how do we define poverty living in a city like Jersey City? How do we define poverty? And you can have your mic right here.
That's a good question. How do we define poverty? I would say living paycheck to paycheck, but many of us can't even live on one paycheck. Can't hear?
A little closer.
Can you hear now?
Yes.
Okay. So I would define poverty as living paycheck to paycheck, but many of us don't even receive a paycheck, and many of us can't even make it on a paycheck. So when you're not able to provide a meal, a nice, healthy meal for your family, you're in poverty. When you're not able to use your entire paycheck, now you need to rob Peter to pay Paul on your bills, you are living in poverty. When you're not able to just make ends meet, buying toilet tissue, buying dish detergent, buying toothpaste, you're living in poverty. That's how I define poverty.
Thank you for that answer. The next question we have for you, what can local government do to minimize the city's level of poverty?
So I just became the State Assembly woman for the 31st District, which composes all of Bayonne and parts of Jersey City. And the first committee that I had to go on was Human Services. And the speaker, our speaker, his name is Vincent Prieto. His initiative this year is how do we help New Jersey combat poverty? And I sat there. This was my first time on the committee. And we listened to testimonials for 5 hours. My first time, 5 hours. We listened to people who are homeless. We listened to people trying to make ends meet. And out of that, it was a revolution. So afterwards, we sat down with some of my state assembly colleagues, and we came up with some legislation that we have tried to introduce. One is we need to increase welfare. If you are a family of 3, you receive $424. A family of 3. That amount has been since the late 1980-something. And we are in 2016, and a family of 3 is still receiving $424. So we have written some legislation so that we can increase that amount. Also, we're working on increasing the minimum wage to $15. We're also working to increase, oh, you want to clap for that? Come on now, let's clap. Right. We're also working on legislation to increase the emergency assistance when people need some emergency assistance as far as housing. So we're working on that legislation. For seniors who reside in a nursing home, right now they receive $35 allowance. So we're working on increasing that to $50. Yes, they're in a nursing home, but you know what? They can still live in poverty too. We're working on about maybe 5 other pieces of legislation from a state perspective. However, that is the first step. Now we need the community, such as everyone in this room, to begin to write letters to me as a state assembly and to the other legislators to state that we support the $15 increase. We support increasing $424 for a family of 3. We support emergency assistance. We support increasing the amount for people who receive SNAP to $21 annually a year, or even more. That's the second step. The third step, as a state legislator, we need to help each other. If you know of an organization, a food shelter, a food pantry, and you know a neighbor that's living halfway on a paycheck, tell them, let them know that you need to go here. We should have food 365 days a year to help the entire state of New Jersey, to help the community, to help the United States. So those are some of the things as a state assembly that I'm working on. And if you come up with an idea, then let me know, because we need to feed the 800,000 children that are right now living in poverty, and the 2.8 million people in New Jersey that are living in poverty.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up for a moment. We only have a short minute or two. So when you speak about the food that's available in our communities, you could speak more about also, the fruits and vegetables, the grocers. You know, there are 38,000 grocery stores in America, and they're far and few in communities that you just spoke about, Angela. Could you speak to the audience about the support of legislation in that area? Or if you open a Trader Joe's, your property value goes up. So can you really speak to that as well for about a minute?
Sure. So if you look at Ward F, that's like south of here, there's no Trader Joe's. We just started to have some pop-up farmers market. And we started to have people come to bring their produce there so that the communities can actually get some fresh fruits and vegetables. Also, they're actually taking the SNAP card. So if you know of a family that receives food stamps, you can now go to these farmers markets to use, which is awesome. But we have to do more. So we need a Trader Joe's, or we need a community that comes together so that we can bring farmers here in urban communities so that we can eat great food. And as far as legislation goes, if you have an idea that can help me write legislation to bring proper food here in urban communities, my door is open. I am ready.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. So now we'll discuss urban sustainability. How do we define urban sustainability as it relates to Jersey City?
Well, thanks. And thank you, Tobias, for bringing everybody together today. This is just great. And I hope that we add hashtag for sustainable JC to the mix of hashtags that people are talking to each other online. So sustainability can be a very, big, abstract topic. I think bringing it down to Jersey City in an urban area that makes it a little bit smaller, but really, no matter where you live, all right, whether it's in an urban area, a suburban area, or if you're out in the country, the whole idea is to have a much more thoughtful approach to what it is that you do every day, your personal practices, what it is that you do at work, and also if there's an opportunity for you to participate, and most people do this every part of every day, to take a little bit more time and be a little bit more thoughtful to the problems that we solve together, mostly I hope. But it just seems that there's a very much more expedient orientation to getting things, to happen, to fixing something, but that's not lasting. Native Americans talk about making changes or making a decision that would affect the next 7 generations. Right, so we need to slow down a little bit and be more thoughtful. I think for me, in the work that I do with Sustainable JC, for the last, I guess we're going to be 5 years now, I find that I butt up against policy all the time, right? So, some of this is very challenging, I think, because everybody's on a learning curve. There's a lot of well-intended, good energy coming to the conversation, but people aren't connecting the dots. And folks, and we've spent an exorbitant amount of time, and it's just starting to happen, and it's very fulfilling when you see that, string of Christmas lights go off, but that everything is connected. You can't make a decision about food when you're, not looking at water and you're not looking at energy efficient buildings. People talk and say that they're water advocates. Well, the biggest suck on water usage are buildings. And it's just extraordinary to me that people aren't focused on how some of these big systems are hooked into one another. So we spend an awful lot of time, the education focus for SJC that you mentioned, and just talking about the way that these systems interrelate and trying to give tangible examples where folks can come to this and look at some of these problems more holistically. So that would be the piece of this, that if you're operating inside of a city government structure, because there are so many competing priorities all the time, where someone, and I do this in business, looks at this as an opportunity to save money or to create more efficiencies, get a bigger bang for your buck, get that 1 + 1 = 3. That's not the way that politicians think so much. And again, in Jersey City, we have a lot of young people coming into the government, right? So what we want to do is take advantage of all the fresh, good ideas and opportunity to, I think, sit with people who are of the cause, if you will. There have been people who've been at this. So, for example, when I started SJC, I went around and talked to all the elders. What have you been doing? What did you learn? What can we not, make the same mistake over? So I think that people have to work together. I think it's, it's a network and a collaboration that's going to save the day. Folks actually acknowledging one another, being very positive about the opportunities, but really looking at the bigger picture, and then finding a way to tangibly and practically do one thing every day to make a difference.
That was excellent. Now, in understanding some of the points that you've touched, there's been a transformation in a lot of urban cities and environments. And I wanted to ask you, how do we transform underserved neighborhoods into becoming more sustainable without gentrifying the community?
Well, again, you're kind of up against some of these forces, but, only until recently, Sustainable JC has been operating only in those neighborhoods. Recently, because there are a group of people who actually recognize that you're as strong as your weakest link, who happen to live downtown, who want to help push this movement out. I'm referring to the sustainability movement in Jersey City. So we've recently had a couple of events downtown, and there was a real surge of people who, in my conversations with them, are talking about the challenged neighborhoods in Jersey City, right? So for us, what you need to do is first spend a lot of time educating people and giving them an opportunity to come to it on their own, right? So access point oftentimes is food, right? You're talking about yourself, you're talking about wanting to keep your family healthy. That's an easy first step. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of community gardens in Jersey City, but it's growing every day. We just mapped 23 of them. There is something called an adopt-a-lot program, city-owned properties that allow folks to come in and do gardens, but it's very temporary. You know, so there aren't in perpetuity. I think there are 2 gardens in that program that will go on. Everything else is being redeveloped. So if what you don't have is an organization and a coalition and a group of people who are coming forward and say, we want you, because we can't stop a challenged area from being redeveloped, we want you to do that on our terms. And it takes a lot of guts when you have those courageous people who frankly don't have the facts or the education to say, I want this plan appointed this way. You know, so for example, there's been a lot of play most recently for commercial districts in Jersey City, some of which are in challenged and underserved neighborhoods. And they're putting redevelopment plans out there that look very much like the redevelopment plans that were laid out before, right? So I'm not certain why a lot of innovation isn't coming to this, but greener buildings, more food growing corridors in Jersey City, you know? It doesn't take more than common sense to suggest that this would really empower people if that's what you'd like to have happen. But, you know, I think that education really has to touch politicians and planners too. You know, last year was the first year that any of the people in the planning department, actually it was about a year ago, had become educated about greener buildings. There aren't ordinances and policies here, and that may happen because there is an awareness where those ordinances and policies may go on the books by the end of this year. But it's not in partnership with the business community, aka the biggest, you know, economic development activity here is real estate development. So they're not connecting with each other. None of that legislation is going to have incentives, for example. So I think that people have to come together and look at how does the business community, local government, and community leaders, who are the ones who can define what's good for their neighborhood, I would say to come together around planning issues. And what I've noticed, and this is one last thing, here's a tier of government that's missing here, right? You jump from neighborhood associations, which there aren't a neighborhood association in every neighborhood, and then you go to council. Like there aren't community boards. Where is that level?
Thank you so much, Deborah, for that. But just one question. What would be the next step if anyone wanted to get involved with creating an organization or all of the issues that you just brought up? If anyone here wanted to or had the need to jump in and get involved, where would they jump in at? Just to support the community.
You know, what's interesting is that we're a very project-driven organization, very team-driven, very agile. We do things, it has, you know, by virtue of it being a project, a beginning and a middle and an end. Right? Some of these projects have actually become organizations, right? The least activated initiative in all of that is government relations.
Great.
What I find very interesting.
Thank you.
What are some of the causes contributing to poor health in Jersey City? And what are some of the steps that need to be taken to increase the quality of health and life expectancy?
I would say that the 2 main aspects or factors that I would identify as contributing to poor health are poverty and access. So poverty and access. As far as access, and by access I mean access to whole, fresh, non-GMO food, organic food. For example, we know that GMOs have, we have extensive research already demonstrating that GMOs are connected to everything from allergies to cancer. And so this is why I think it's vitally important for people to begin growing their own food. Farming, gardening is, I think, really a revolutionary act, because you are bypassing the commercial food industry in some ways. And so by doing that, you're empowering yourself to take control and power over your own health and making your own choices, as opposed to allowing the food industry to make the choices for you. So I would say that in Jersey City, we do have a culture of health in Jersey City. We have a lot of efforts that are contributing to a culture of health. I would say, off the top of my head, the community gardens, of course. We have the rain garden developed by Sustainable Jersey City, and maybe Zeb can say more about that. We have many community gardens. We also have, for example, now we have the Riverview Community Garden in the Heights is actually undergoing a project for food sharing. And so what I've noticed is that people who garden, people who grow their own food, tend to share their food. And to me, an economy where you're sharing food is a thriving economy. So I would say that, let's see, with growing your own food, or actually, I would like to go back to what is the culture of health here in Jersey City, because I think it's really important to look at what we're already doing well. I like to begin with what we're doing well. Okay, so we have our community garden effort. Okay, it's not extensive, but we have that. We have the Angels Garden, for example, that's enabling the homeless population to plant and grow their own food. That's huge, right? We have the Storms Community Garden, Astor Place Community Garden. I know that I'll forget them, but I want to name some of these so we get familiar with what's going on here in Jersey City, right? We have the Peace Community Garden, which I'm a part of myself. And so, as far as gardening, as far as good, whole food, we do have some of that movement as well. Angela mentioned the farmers markets. We have the Asian food markets, which often do sell fresh produce. We have, establishments like Subia's downtown, or like T&J, which are vegan cafes. So these are some of the things that I think we're doing really well. As far as the Asian markets, as far as the farmers markets, they are accepting EBT, they are accepting SNAP benefits. That's wonderful. But the key thing here for me is affordability. How affordable is it? And how far will your money go? Whether it's SNAP benefits or cash, how far is that money going to go? And so poverty, they're waving me now. I'm going to try to wrap up. I'm obviously passionate about this. With poverty, as far as poverty is concerned, New Jersey and Hudson County, we have one of the highest poverty rates in the country. We also score low on health as well. So there is quite a bit of work to be done, but there is a place to begin. We do have a movement already. We do have a culture of health here, and I think that we can look at best practices across the country that can help us learn or inspire us to learn what other ways we can continue growing the culture of health. And I'll say one last thing. I know I'm almost done.
No, that's for us.
That's for you, okay. One of the movements that inspired me, and it was something that happened in California recently in Santa Ana, which allowed a community organization, grassroots community organization, got together with city council. They created a resolution, a wellness resolution that included creating an urban micro farm cooperative. and the neighborhood would become eventually full owners of this initiative. And so that to me is revolutionary. When you think about it, we have urban food forests in places like Boston and Seattle. So these are some of the things I'd like to see inspire us here. And what I think is also vitally important is to look locally at where we are and decide what does a culture of health mean for Jersey City. So maybe today we can begin to talk about what does that look like. This is a very diverse community. There are many different types of people here, so we can begin to learn cross-culturally from each other's traditions and cultures and backgrounds.
The mindfulness and the creativity around engaging with clean food. When you speak about the gardening that's happening all over the country, it's real, it's definite, it's been happening for many years, to your point, so thank you for sharing that. There's also an opportunity, I believe, where the government will give you money. They'll go in to support a garden, a co-op garden. Does that happen here, or maybe Angela can jump in? Is there information on that for the audience on how you can begin your own cooperative garden? You can do that.
I've noticed that there's a lot of grassroots gardening happening around here, and I've noticed that there is city support as well. We have the Adopt a Lot program.
Great.
And maybe Deb and Angela can add to that.
You want to add to it?
Yes, as far as the adopt-a-lots and legislation, there are some support from the state. And Tobias, what I will do is actually send you pieces of legislation that you can disseminate out to the audience here, because we have to share the information. There are a lot of items that the state is doing, but some of us just don't know. And for me, as being a newly elected, I didn't know, oh, there's a lot. And I'm like, wow, New Jersey can do this, New Jersey can do that. So now I'm sharing that information with my constituents. So I will definitely give you a list of all in reference to sustainable living, healthy eating, what's out there as far as to help the residents of New Jersey.
So, from what I understand with legislation, and I would say in recent times, about the last 18 months, there's been a lot of conversation about allowing gardeners, for example, to sell their food.
Yes.
And that legislation was passed, except you have to be a nonprofit. So what we've done here in Jersey City is network these gardeners. So we now have a sustainable garden network that is being spearheaded. SJC is partnering with the Jersey City Garden Coalition for the purposes of bringing resources to the network. That's one thing. And we've mapped the network so folks can actually tune in. We were talking about access before. Visuals are very powerful, right? You can certainly, because our website is a very bad example of inundating people with data, but our resources page, for example, has highlighted that legislation. What we've also, in taking that network, done, and we're releasing that this week, we've been soft launching it now for a while. SJC has partnered with the Grace Communications Foundation in New York. These are the people who actually coined the phrase sustainable table, right? And they produce, one of their projects is something called an Eat Well guide. They produce these Eat Well guides for cities all over the country. What they've done is produce an Eat Well guide for Jersey City, for sustainable Jersey City, for our organization, and allowed us to put one of the posts, or one of the listings up there that represents the garden network. Previous to this, they've never before also published farmers markets and buyers club, food buying club, and CSAs. They put that on there. So we're trying to bend the rules a little bit to put information out there that puts a little pressure on the system. Now this is crowdsourced. So you can say, well, we have fabulous ethnic food in Jersey City, but it's not all healthy. But if we publish this guide and all of you post one listing that meets the criteria, we just put it out there with the Grace Foundation, are the ones that have to say, oh, that's a healthy eating place. We can nominate, they have to validate. It puts pressure on the system, because all of a sudden there's this directory of healthy eating establishments, and then if you're not on that directory, you're not healthy. Right? And it's you folks who get to decide. That's another way of putting a little bit of pressure on the system.
Thank you so much for that. Now for our last topic, we'll be moving to Sid for climate. Why should we be concerned about climate change?
Thank you. Hope and action. My message is about hope and action. And if you saw my handout, the 5th item on here says there's hope. The 3rd item on here says it's bad. And that's the short answer to why we need action on climate. But what we really need is people to get involved and be active. And so I'm asking you to be active. And I'm asking people that are probably already active on a lot of issues. You have a full plate, and I'm asking you to be active on climate in addition to that. And I'm going to ask you to make that your highest priority. I'm going to ask you to make climate your highest priority. And you justifiably should say, why should I make climate my highest priority? And if you think about all issues, they all have the same answer. It's bad. That's the reason you're working on the issues, right? So it's hard to see why you should do climate before other things. So let me try to answer that question for you. Climate is a function of physical systems, physics, chemistry, and biology. The rules of physics, chemistry, and biology are driving climate. Those laws cannot be changed, and we must abide by them. So, on the other hand, if you look at human systems, which are the majority of the rest of the systems that we deal with, basically what we're doing is changing the rules. So the difference between the two systems is, one, you must abide by it in terms of climate, and on human systems, you change the rules. So what is that? There's a different approach for those two things to happen, and that's an important difference for you to understand. So, and the consequences of those differences are also extremely important. In human systems, when you make a change to a system, whether it takes you a few weeks, a few months, years, or generations, after that, everything is better for everybody else. But if you don't change climate systems, if you don't abide by the rules of the climate, things are getting worse. And they're going to be worse for centuries, to millenniums, to forever. To quote one of the things on my sheet that I handed out, if I can find it here. We must reduce pervasive and irreversible impacts for people and ecosystems. That's what happens if we don't do climate. That's what's going to happen. Things are going to get worse. So, for natural systems, slowing the response a little bit means worse results for all future. For natural systems, slowing the response means worse conditions forever for all generations. For human systems, a slight delay in making the changes means that later on, all future generations still get those improvements. In summary, the reason for hope and action on climate is that relatively speaking, we can have better conditions in terms of climate for everybody if we act as soon as possible. There's hope and we need action. I invite you to become active.
So Sid, great. So I want to just focus for one minute on taking us outside of New Jersey for a moment, in Jersey City. So if you live in California, of course, California being the largest state, 30 million people, and more than half of the residents live in LA County. So that's 17 million. There are 52 million cars in LA County. So looking at that perspective and thinking about what we can do just locally here, addressing climate change, what would be maybe one or two things we can do immediately if we're living in that type of environment? And of course we're not, so which means I think we've got a head start. You know, we never know how it's going to expand within your community, but if you look at the state of California and LA County, that's what they're dealing with, 52 million cars. I can't imagine that locally, but can you give us a perspective on global warming and what we can do next to
Yeah, so the answer is to truly be effective in terms of global warming, you have to act collectively. And the most important thing for us to do collectively is to pass national climate legislation.
Excellent.
I was at a conference by Food and Water a week or so ago, and somebody observed, gee, there are 8,000 or 9,000 people, or 1 million people in New Jersey, and there's only a couple of hundred people here that are concerned about clean water. And I have to tell you that this is not a big audience for 8 million people in New Jersey either. But the way you get change made for the rest of the people that are not here is you become collective and you pass national climate legislation. National climate legislation will increase the cost of fossil fuels, which is the main reason for global warming. And with that increase, renewable energy sources will become more acceptable to everyone. And there are good ways of doing that, and if I had more time, or maybe at a round table, I'll be able to explain that. But is that a good enough answer?
Yes.
Yes, that was excellent.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
So let us give our panelists a round of applause. So as we transition to the next part of this conference, I bring you back to the initial question I asked in the beginning. What are you great at? As you transition to your roundtables, I want you to focus on your own personal talent. Your personal talent is what drives social sustainable change. We heard that if you have an idea, if you want to support something locally, at the most minute level, it is your gift, your talent, and your purpose that creates that. An example of that is the Garden of Hope that's located in Newark, New Jersey. Newark SAS developed, and we collaborated to bring that to life, which is a STEM garden that the local preschool and other schools can utilize, and the neighborhood can come and collaborate with one another. That idea happened in a conversation I had with Tobias, and I said, hey, maybe we should make a garden. Let's adopt a lot like the people's garden that you already have. I live in Orlando, Florida currently, and all of this happened via 350 emails later and a host of conference calls, and the Garden of Hope came to life. I was not in Newark. I am from Newark, but I wasn't in Newark at the time. And so I want you to use that as a symbol, as an example, that you don't have to be present to be a change maker in society. You just have to have passion. Passion like the panelists, passion that you already have. So I continue to say, what are you great at? I was great at writing a grant, and so we won it. And so the Garden of Hope continues to come to life through the support and the help of community members. Again, nothing is for free, but with the passion that I pull out of people and that Tobias brings together, we are change makers in society. And so your presence here is not to be taken lightly. It is to leave here today from a round table, from the things you've already heard, and to charge yourself with an actionable step that at its minute may just be a letter to legislation about something that you're passionate about. And so we charge you with this as you go into your panel discussions. Thank you so much.
Ray Watson is kind enough to allow me to make this presentation. It's about sustainable bedrooms. We decided at our table that would be where we restore, breathe deep. So we start to think about our mattresses, consider organic mattresses, consider sustainable mattresses. There are a lot of neurotoxins and flame retardants that when we're resting, we are taking in. Now there are some young, amazing millennials who have made it their mission to make organic mattresses affordable. Some of the sites are in Brooklyn and places that are very close by. Linen bedding, mattress toppers, if you cannot afford a mattress, or an encasing that's organic. These are some of the things to begin to think about as we think of buying sustainable and creating a sustainable environment in our bedrooms. The Amish have been making amazing furnishings for a very long time without a lot of finishes that are toxic. We have to look no further than Pennsylvania to begin to source beds or nightstands or dressers of all designs, of all great looks. So that's also another place to consider using essential oils to create a restful environment. Lavender, putting it in a diffuser that you may plug in, or an oil burner that you may use, consuming teas, that kind of thing to create a restful environment for you as you're redesigning your bedroom. Low VOC paints are very common. If you're going to repaint, use something that has no low or low volatile organic compounds. All of these off-gassing from finishes, fabrics, wood floors, tile components, sheetrock. That's what's creating a toxic environment in our homes. So, and starting with the bedroom, we can consider low VOC paints. Open the windows even in the winter. Let the chi move, let the air flow. Bring in the sunlight. You walk past some of our neighborhoods and our windows are closed and our shades are down, so bring in the sunlight. So here are some highlights from our table, and I hope you took away some bullets, some nuggets. Thank you so much.
And please identify yourself when you approach the mic. Thanks.
My name is Oliver Harwood. Hello, everyone. I have to say that we had an incredible discussion. My armpits got a little sweaty. Part of the reason is because I use a deodorant that I have to apply with my fingers, which is sustainable. So one of the discussions that we had was about Buddhism. Does anybody here know what Buddhism is? This idea that we are all the same, we are all one energy, right? So how do we build resilience? One of the ways we can build resilience is by realizing that there is no separate system. There's no separation between us and the environment. We are all one. And how can we come together and fix this problem that we have? We just came from Superstorm Sandy. Does anybody know what happened after Superstorm Sandy? People moved back, right? People moved back to where they were before, where this natural disaster happened and we spent all of this money. Is that the right decision? Where should those people go? Maybe inland? Where should they live? We can't wait for government or policy. Corporations might follow the consumer. And I'm going to leave you with this question. Can one individual create change? How can we create change and change the climate?
I got elected by process of elimination. My name is Vernisa. and I am with Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. All my people out here. With the Montclair chapter, Omicron Xi Omega. And I was sitting with the OMG GMO table, and I learned a lot. Mostly we discussed resources on where you can look to find what types of food is good for you, things that are natural, what's organic, because everything that you put into your body, it just determines everything, how you function, how you think, how you feel, and what we pass on to our children. So basically, you want to make sure that you know what you're eating, know what you're putting into your body, so that we can grow and be productive citizens and go forward and be able to do everything else we need to do to be able to be good citizens of the earth. So I'm excited because I am actually going to use the resources that we learned and pick up some more resources so that I can be the seed in my environment, in my family, in my community, and take what I learned to pass it on. Because basically that's what it is. We all are seeds so that we can pass it on and grow and learn and pass it on to our children so that we can be still here afterwards. So thank you.
Greetings, my name is Jacqueline Beto, and we had a fabulous discussion. It was full of energy as public and charter issues came up, and we've empowered each other because we brought the topic back to transforming the minds of children to become empowered to make a difference in their community. We posed the question, what type of villager are you? Because it takes a village to raise a child, but what type of villager are you? Are you the villager that complains? Are you the villager that enacts change, that inspires this in children? And so those are some of the topics that came up because we saw that there are systemic issues that affect education. And in order to engage our children in better understanding of what it is to create a sustainable society for tomorrow, it is empowering them at a young age. So we discussed gardening programs for preschool students, instilling those things in them as children. And we also identified that that begins at home with the parents. So we empower the parents with information on how to sustain their own living, their own cooking, their own dynamics at home, so that when their children grow up, they can reminisce and say, my mother taught me how to garden, my father taught me how to farm, and they will continue that process with their own children. And we thank you for this opportunity to engage with one another. As one of the things we left the table saying, it's not about independent schools, it's not about charter schools, and it's not about public schools. It's about empowering all students to make sustainable choices for a better community tomorrow.
Okay, so Tracy's going to hold up the notes and I'll summarize. So this was about communal living. The idea is the sharing economy taken to the farthest reach of living together and pooling one's income, pooling your income as a community to have businesses in the community, run by the people in the community. Some people may work outside. We had a discussion about the various divisions between, communes where people pool their income, and in Europe they pool their assets as well. So whatever you have had all your life, you put in, and you may have a contract as to what you can get back if you move. In the United States, it seems that communes mostly share income and not assets. Kind of an interesting thing. And then my husband and I are working on a project to build eco-villages all over New Jersey. And the distinction there is that people live together in community, but they don't pool income. And they share a common house with common meals and common tools. But a lot of these things are really about how do we live lightly on the land and consume as few resources as possible. And that's part of how do we live sustainably. We all know that each of us consumes about 5 to 10 times more resources than most people in the world. And we have to do something to bring that down, and communes and community living is one way. So, thank you. We didn't get into all the specifics in this, but it's a great way to live if you haven't, and we're going to do this big in New Jersey, both communes and eco-villages. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dan Uloa with 15 Now. We had a good discussion at our table discussing all the issues with poverty in America and especially New Jersey in terms of minimum wage. A lot of people can't really survive on the money they're making right now, and that leads to a lot of health problems. For example, problems paying the bills, paying rent, paying child support, kind of thing. So we talked about the idea of a living wage, a wage that would be able to address all those problems in today's society and will keep you from being one catastrophe away from destitution that way. And people really need to understand also that a living wage is like a rising tide that lifts all boats. People making 15 right now would make more if people making the bottom minimum would make 15, for example. So we'd all really benefit in that respect. That's a really important thing to take away that I'd say right now. So we're building right now in New Jersey for $15 minimum wage. We're petitioning and getting legislation to the State House. So please, if you want to help us, please sign up and have a good day.
Hello everyone, my name is Shanette Norris. I'm a New Jersey resident, a native of New York, and we talked a lot about, well, first we went around the table and we talked about the varying degrees of experience in gardening at our table, and we actually had a vast range of people who are experienced farmers, experienced gardeners, to those of us who are novices, to those of us who have absolutely no experience. So it was very interesting, and I think it's very reflective of the community and of this room in particular. So then we talked about food sovereignty and empowering ourselves and how to get out of, how to move away from us being slaves to the industrial agricultural system and how to move into a more empowered situation where we are actually producing our own food in whatever way we can. So the first things that we talked about learning were basically how to create and produce our own food. What do we have to do? So we talked about different resources like NOFA, it's the Northeastern New Jersey Organic Farming Association. They have a website, nofa.org, I believe it is. And you can go there and they have classes, in-person classes, information online where you can learn about farming, learn about gardening, everything that you need to know, what it takes to become a farmer, everything from organic farming series to beginner gardening and farming programs. We also talked about the Greater Newark Conservancy. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that organization. It's a huge resource for Essex County gardeners and farmers in terms of composting programs, resources and tools. They actually even have a re-entry program for prisoners and teaching them how to do green jobs and how to farm. So it's a really great organization. We also talked about the different resources for growers that they have. And then also books. There are a list of books that Teresa has at the table that she can give you if you just want to learn the basics of organic gardening, organic farming. One of the main writers was Elliot Coleman, who has a great book, The New Organic Farmer, who she highly recommends. So if you want to get that list, you can go to the table and Teresa will have that information. We also discussed technical assistance, getting that assistance from corporations like NOFA, the Newark Conservancy, and also Rutgers Cooperative Extension, which also helps new and growing farmers. And then also just mobilizing and becoming an advocate and organizing and getting involved with different organizations that are doing the work in the communities. So we have organizations like NOFA, like Newark's Conservancy, the Food Shed Alliance, and others. If you Google food sovereignty, food justice organizations, I'm sure a list of places in your area or that are accessible to you will come up. So it might take a little digging, but you can also find organizations that you can contact. And finally, we talked a lot about just start farming. Just do whatever you can do. If it's container gardening in your own homes, if it's gardening in your backyards, if it's interning at a community garden or volunteering or becoming an intern at a local farm. You can actually go to New Jersey LandLink and find out who's leasing farm space. So if you actually want to lease space to farm, there are places that you can look and find spaces where you can go and lease that land. We also had one of our participants at our table who works with City Green in Clifton. They have a farm in Clifton, New Jersey. If you want to volunteer at the garden, you can go to citygreenonline.org and volunteer your time. But it's going to take a little looking, but we can do it. So if we all want to do something, just start somewhere. Thank you.
Hi, it's Denise.
And I'm Pablo.
And we had a vibrant discussion on back in the day when Jersey used to be called the Garden State, and it's become the garbage state, and how we can ratchet it back up to being the Garden State, because the disposable domain that is basically all across this country has to change. There is a New Jersey entity called TerraCycle that I want to encourage you all to have a look at. It's based in Trenton. It takes every single piece of garbage that we have been brainwashed into believing that isn't recyclable, and it makes products from them. And there are campaigns that the community can participate in for free to get different kinds of perks from TerraCycle, and take, like from the nutrition bars, all those wrappers are not recyclable. They take them back and they upcycle them into products. They collect cigarette butts and they upcycle them into products. So social justice equals food and climate justice. And according to EPA, only 34% of Americans recycle. And that is worse than abominable.
She pretty much covered everything. Good night. Just kidding. So we just discussed, hold on a second. We pretty much discussed just bringing it to your home and the mentality that goes behind upcycling and recycling, and what you can do at your local communities. Bring it to the dinner table, bring it to your kids. Make sure that it's more of a conversation than just these meetings, essentially. So that's it for me. Good night.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I'm Anna.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
And we started, first specifically, Faisal made the point that healthy food, the connection between healthy food and healthy mind, and we had a wonderful discussion about that. But I think what came out toward the end of it is we deeply desire health, flourishing, balance, and that we as a people have a right to demand that of our political leaders and our system, that we have to articulate that demand. So we move from this desire to health to talk about things, everything that is unhealthy in our society, and how really, really deeply out of whack things are. I think you all know the specifics, but there's a great sense of sickness and a disequilibrium and almost a dystopia. And so when forces, external forces are that strong in a very destructive direction, the question for all of us came, where are you going to find your resilience, your resources, your inner resources? So Nicole had some really good questions about that, because it gets tricky sometimes. If you wanted to.
Right. One of the things that we touched on was when you're making a decision, you have to not only consider what you think, but you also have to consider what others think. So a lot of times you have to balance what you think and what is best, and also get feedback from other people so that you can go forward and make a decision based on not only what you want, but with the consideration of others. So that's one of the big points that we took away with.
We also brought it down to the community. Karen made the point that really so many communities and so many people in those communities are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, the violence in the communities, mass incarceration, for example, the income gap, an inequality gap, again, which is destroying us. So we said, in light of all of this, the work of this inner strength has to be centered, has to be central. Now, what that work is really up to the individual. Is it going to be meditation? Is it going to be breathing technique, yoga? nature, Reiki, reflexology, that's what you decide. We didn't feel that we had the authority to tell people, okay, you will be doing this specifically. You find that. But the point is to find it and to do it and to make it centered in our lives, in our schools, at our work, in our churches, mosques, synagogues, wherever it is we are. So does this work of being centered, of a practice that speaks to vitality and to life. And again, we find that this is really necessary. Vince spoke of Jeremy Rifkin's work, and his work is pointing to really a systems collapse. And we're going to need some very strong and resilient people, but that strength is there. That's the thing. Don't give up hope, because the strength is there. It's right here in this room. It's right in front of our faces. It's just a matter of awakening to this. And we committed ourselves to doing that, and we ended by saying it's always love at the center, and by naming each person around the table, Faisal, Brian, Elaine, Vincent, Anna, Karen, and Nicole. And he's like, I'm gonna shout those names, so awesome, yay for inner strength. Yeah. And I also, now that I have the mic, no. I also wanted to give a shout out to Marcia. You have to understand that for a teacher, when they see a student come to life, flourish, like just be in charge, it brings tears to your eyes. It makes you so happy. And I'm so happy and proud of Marcia. She's amazing. And this is why, yeah. I think the way that I think of teaching, it's like, you're like this position, you just give a boost up, and then the student just runs with it and flies with it. And it's the best vision ever. So thank you, Marcia. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi, my name is Asma Abdallah. I'm from Kane University. So our topic was about economic energy. Unfortunately, Damien DeCaris wasn't here to speak to us about the roundtable, but Tobias was here to speak to us about it, and pretty much it's about like solar panels and like saving energy. So where would we start from that? Pretty much just start by like turning off your lights when you don't need them, so you could like lower your bills. You can start doing research by seeing how much energy you utilize throughout your day, and make an investment in technology. Also, we were speaking about plants, how you could start planting plants in your house, indoors and outdoors. Outdoors as well, and how the different temperatures that you require to take care of these plants. So pretty much we just start by planting and just like try to use solar panels to save energy. And that's it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Clap it up, clap it up, clap it up, clap it up, clap it up. I want to thank you all. Please don't forget to just post something up on your way out and grab a batch of bananas, a bundle of oranges. Is it a batch of oranges, bundle of bananas? I don't know. Just grab some doggone fruit. Do not leave us with all this stuff, please. And I'll be in touch with you all. Thank you so much.